Number 1. The Habit. Alright, I want to let you know right away that this story may seem a little weird. I, at one point, began belching a whole lot more than usual. At first I thought it was because I had been drinking too much soda, so I cut that out. I also changed several other things in my diet, but that didn't seem to help. No matter what I was changing or doing differently, the problem only seemed to get worse and worse. This is the weirdest part though. When I was laying in bed, I always sleep on my left side, and one night I turned around on my right side, and suddenly the belching stopped. I guess that fact is really not that important, but it sort of got me a little concerned. It was just something that was so weird. I immediately thought that something must absolutely really be wrong with me, so I decided to go and see a doctor about it. Turned out that I had acid reflux, which was actually a bit of a relief. I was scared of ulcers or something like that. Fortunately, I did not have one of those. I got some very easy medicine, and it didn't go away immediately. Now, I'm a little weird about belching. When I was 5, I remember burping and not excusing myself. I was in a car with a babysitter who sort of went off on me. She told me that by not saying "excuse me" after you burp offends Jesus. That scared me because she told me I would go to hell. So for the rest of my life, I became obsessed by this, and I would even go "excuse me" if I was alone. Alright, so I've been talking about belching for quite a while, and you're probably wondering why. Well, it's related to the scariest thing that has ever happened to me in my lifetime. It's a very weird story, and I don't even know how to set the tone for it. I was a teenager, and was home one night by myself. My parents had gone out of town, so the cars were gone too. I kept all the lights off because I personally prefer hanging out in the dark, and at some point I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up later when I heard a strange noise. It was dark, and because the TV was put on a timer, since I very often fell asleep in front of it, the TV was out. I had rolled over on the couch, so I was in the position that caused me to belch all the time. After waking up, I just had to do it, so I did, and as usual, even though I was alone, I said, "Excuse me." "You're excused." I heard a voice respond to me. I jumped in fright, and then I noticed a dark figure across the room from me. It stood there for a moment, seemingly as surprised to see me and hear me as I was to see and hear him. After a tense moment, the figure turned and ran and went out the front door. I came from behind, locked the door, and called the police. I had to remain in the living room because I was disturbed that there might be another person in the house. The police, however, checked the house and found out that the break-in happened in our basement. There was no one in the house. I never found out anything about the guy. Nothing was missing from the home. They never caught him, and it took me a long time to be comfortable in the dark again. Number 2. While sleeping. This isn't a very long story, but it is definitely a scary one. To this day I get freaked out, even thinking about it. I moved around a lot when I was younger. I guess that's not too relevant, but when I finally moved out on my own, I decided that I wanted to buy a house rather than rent one. Of course, I wasn't super rich or anything, so I had to buy a fixer-upper. There were some weird problems with it. There were no screens in any of the windows on both floors. The top floor rooms needed a bunch of work too, so I used one of the ground floor rooms for my bedroom. I guess the house had been empty for a long time before I had bought it. It was a popular little haunted house in the neighborhood that kids would tell stories about. I had known about that before I bought it, but really didn't care much. I mean, there was a man who had died in the house, but I did not believe in ghosts or anything like that. And it was a suicide, not a murder, so I wasn't worried about a murderer coming back to the house or anything. I was sleeping. It was dark and something woke me up. I wasn't sure what it was because I tend to sleep on my stomach. At first I just thought maybe I had dreamed something and it woke me up. My eyes jotted around a little bit before I turned over and saw someone trying to climb in my window, right above my mattress. Hell, I jumped back and yelled and booked out of the room. All the stories about what the kids thought happened in that house flooded my mind. As I ran out onto the porch, I had a baseball bat on the porch, and after I checked around the house and did not see anyone there, I figured the man must have been in the house. I had no way to contact the police or get help, so I just waited and watched. I figured I would knock the guy out with a bat when he came out, but he didn't come out. When I eventually went back into the house, I noticed that he was not there. No one was. My window was still open though, and that was the scariest part, because it let me know that I had not dreamed what had happened. But it never happened again, as long as I lived in that house. I never found out why the guy was there, or anything. But I sure had the crap scared out of me. Number 3. My dog. I need to start this story with a bit of a warning. It may not be one for those who have a weak stomach. A few years back, I had a beautiful Siberian Husky named Wolfie. Oh, he was a great dog, and I miss him quite a bit. This story takes place a couple years after I'd first gotten Wolfie. I lived in a beautiful house that was sitting on the edge of a large forest. It was just me and Wolfie there, and I liked it like that. He was a very good, very well-behaved dog, so I never had him leashed. Whenever he was outside, he was free to go about his own way. He would go and explore the forest occasionally, but he also always came back home. But there was one night where he didn't come home. I figured that he must have just found something exciting to do and he would be back late. But as the sun went down, more and more time passing, he didn't come home. I began to get worried when we got further into the wee hours of the night. Going to the edge of the forest in the night, I called for Wolfie. I was sort of hoping that maybe he had just gotten distracted or something. I don't know. I was trying to hold out hope that nothing bad had happened. But even with me calling out into the forest after him, Wolfie didn't come out of the woods. So it was very late, after midnight, when I finally heard something that led me to believe Wolfie was coming back. I heard some noise that definitely sounded like an animal running through the forest. I shined my flashlight in that area that the noises were coming from. I called for Wolfie, and soon I was happy to see my dog coming towards me. My happiness turned to panic, though, when I saw that my dog had blood on his face. He didn't seem like he was in pain or anything. He just seemed like his normal self. After looking him over, I found out that he wasn't injured at all. He must have either killed an animal, or came across an animal that was already dead and ate some of it. And that was pretty gross, but, in my viewpoint, he was my pup, and I had no problem cleaning him off. When I was taking Wolfie back over to the house, he actually got sick and vomited on the porch. And what I saw made me sick to my stomach, more than Wolfie probably was. It seemed like he vomited human tissue. It looked like a piece of skin with some hair on it. Well, I then threw up right away also. I had no idea what could have happened, and immediately I began to worry that Wolfie might have killed someone. But that really didn't make sense to me. He had never been an aggressive dog of any kind. But I was really worried. Of course, there were several things to be concerned about. One, I didn't know if eating human flesh was bad for a dog, so I needed to take him to a vet. Plus, if there was a dead person out in the forest, I had to get in touch with the police. Well, the rest of the story I'll just summarize. The details are pretty disgusting already, so I don't want to burden you all with them, but Wolfie didn't kill anybody. But there was a hermit who lived in that forest who had his own dogs. He passed away, and without a food source, they eventually began eating him. Wolfie just came along, and I guess the dogs decided to share. Fortunately, the dog was fine, but it was a long while before I ever let him lick me again. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. I first want to thank everybody who was so kind to me when I was posting the channel update. It meant a lot to me to know that I have some of the best subscribers on YouTube. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please feel free to use the subscribe button below, and the bell, or use the icon of Ichigo the cat that will appear at the end of this closing. If you have an original story you like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please mail it to the address included in the description. Also leave me a comment and share this video with someone you think might enjoy it. But whatever you do, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.